tip.
Good morning. It is 11:20 on the West Coast. You're listening to Little Column A, Little Column B, April 14th, 2018. My name is Will Limonos, your host, and Zach Bishop is on the phone, your co-host. How you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? I am so excited for the NBA playoffs to start. The regular season, it just ends. It just ends. There was this crazy overtime game to decide who got the 8th seed in the West, and then they just end, and they say you just have to take a little cool down, and you just build anticipation. I didn't even know what to do with myself yesterday. It's Friday night. I ended up watching baseball. I watched some high school basketball, and then I even watched a little bit of hockey, and I'm just so glad for real basketball to be back today.
Real basketball. Well, you know what? It was quite the drama at the end of there. I mean, who feels bad for Denver? I'm raising my hand. I think all the listeners, you can raise your hand as well. I have some sympathy for the teams that didn't manage to get in. And it was really fun to have a do or die game though. That was cool. I wish we could have that sort of situation every year where the playoffs just start. It was must win for so many teams right there at the end. And if you don't win, you're not in, or if you lose, you're risking a position of being a top 4 seed potentially to being a bottom 4 in a blink of an eye of one loss.
It was wild. Just that whole last week. I'm following NBA Twitter, and certain guys are just the simulation and hey, here's what could happen if this happens. And with a week to go, you'd see it'd be like if OKC wins tonight, all these things happen, they will move up to the 4th seed. If they lose and then all this other stuff happens, they are the 9th seed. Like how is there that much of a swing between having home court in the first round to not even making the playoffs? It just in the East and the West, so much more in the West. But I mean, till that last day, there was still jockeying for position, and it didn't know who was going to play who. It made it really exciting to continue to talk about.
All right, well, we do have our number 1 seeds, which is the Toronto Raptors and the Houston Rockets. I don't think either of us had those predicted. I had Houston finishing number 2 to Golden State. What did you predict? Looks like
I had the Celtics and the Warriors.
And the Celtics and the Warriors. And I had the Raptors at 4. You had them at 3, so you did a little bit better. Would you say that is the most surprising thing of the playoff seeding so far, of where the Toronto Raptors finished, or where Houston finished, or where Golden State finished now at 2? What was the most shocking thing?
I had the Rockets at 2, but I think that gap between the Warriors and the Rockets, I think that switch would be bigger than the Raptors going past the Celtics and the Cavs.
Well, for me,
even though it's different, it's 2 spots versus 1 spot. I think the gap in games, I was surprised. I thought the Warriors would be much more dominant.
For me, the biggest shock is where the Washington Wizards finished. Barely crawling in at the 8 seed, just a complete collapse. I know it was a pretty tight race over there as well, but if you told me they were going to finish outside the top 4, I would have said, well, John Wall was hurt the whole year, and Bradley Beal played only 50 games, and you were stuck with Otto Porter playing a lot of games. And in some way, that is kind of what happened, but I didn't see it happen like this. And I think the blame goes on the same guy that we blame Kevin Durant for now being on a different team and James Harden for being on another team. I'm putting a lot of blame on Scott Brooks. Is that fair? Is that fair? Can I blame Scott Brooks for all this? Especially the locker room drama. This just seems like anywhere he goes, he can't handle these personalities. He can't deal with the talented roster.
It did seem someone's got to take control when when Wall goes down, and then they win a couple of games, and then the narrative kind of goes towards even just a couple of the players just say some borderline things, and then it just comes out or just starts to snowball into, ooh, are the Wizards better without John Wall? Which is a ridiculous statement. He's an all-star. He's a phenomenal player. If the team is doing better without him, there's something not right. You're not using him correctly, or you're not using the other players correctly when he's there. But he was injured for a significant portion of the year, but that might surprise you from him going. You were saying you're expecting a top 4, so even if he was healthy, I'm not sure they cracked that. But that could be the surprise between, say, more 4 or 5 seed versus 8 almost out of the playoffs.
I didn't see it happen. I had John Wall an MVP candidate for my year. Like I thought he was going to be one of those guys. I just felt like Golden State. It felt like Washington was just on the right path, and that the East was going to have this weird year of LeBron's team being very old, Boston being very young, and then getting hurt very early. Toronto always being Toronto, which they're always there, but is anyone ever really scared of Toronto? This may be the year that you should be, with the East being scrambled up. Nobody thought Philly would be what Philly was, with them being really young. It just felt like this was the year that the Wizards had been there long enough and they'd had the star power to take that step to really kind of control the conference. And they did the complete opposite. So that's the most surprising thing for me looking at the seedings right now. Now, there's going to be a lot of good matchups here. I think we're going to see how many game sevens do you think we're going to think? I think we're going to see multiple game sevens. There's going to be, I think each one of these matchups has a chance to go seven. With
I have 3 of the matchups going 7.
You got 3 of them. I have a hard time not saying every single one can't go 7. The only one I don't think will go 7 is the Warriors and San Antonio. That sounds like a for sure shorter. And then the Cavs Pacers, I think that'll be a quick one too. I applaud the Pacers for doubling down on that trade and really coming through with it. I mean, who won that trade right now? Do you think this Paul George trade was worth it?
Well, we're gonna see how well the Thunder do with Paul George, and then see if he stays or not. But I think that what was at the beginning a for sure Thunder victory has turned throughout the season with the play of Oladipo as a ooh. Well, now I'm not sure. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe I back up a little bit.
The Oladipo story is also very shocking. I mean, he's essentially playing with worse talent around him and became a better player. Does that have any relation to the way Russell Westbrook plays? Do you think there's a connection there at all? There has to be, right? This is the John Wall thing you were just
I
saying.
think
You're
that
clearly not using him right, or there was some sort of dysfunction of inefficiency with the roster you had.
I think it's tricky, and you just have these certain players that they're just so good. It's you just have to figure out is 10. You're trying to max out Westbrook to get 10% more out of him, but you lose 30% of Oladipo. Like, where is the trade off? It's tricky because if you're looking at it last year, if I were to say, hey, we have to take shots away from and possessions away from Russell Westbrook to give it to Victor Oladipo, would you for sure be like, yep, that's an excellent idea. We should definitely do that.
It's easy to say now. You're right. You wouldn't have said it then, but it's
Yeah.
much easier to say now and today after you see clearly this guy is one of the more premier players, and I don't think we gave him that nod too long ago.
Oh,
So
not at all.
if anything, if anything, I didn't feel like Victor
I
Oladipo was
had him. I
anywhere
had the
near.
Pacers finishing in 11th, so I did not believe in them at all.
I had them at 10 because they do still have a pretty good young roster. Turner is solid. I thought Sabonis would be very solid for the trade they got. Also,
No,
Oladipo's not,
he played well. He played well too.
and he's very young, a very young team. So they're definitely on the rise. This is a big year for them to already be where they're at with some of the young talent they have. A couple of draft picks, a couple more veteran moves here and there. They may be around for some time right now. And there's only a couple teams in the East that you could say that about. I feel like Milwaukee is in this weird position right now where they're very young, but they're also in a must-win mode. I see a
Yeah,
lot of these young
that
players.
Bledsoe trade.
A lot of these players are going to have to get paid soon, and you're not going to be able to afford all of them. But at the same time, they're very young, and to put that sort of pressure and expectation on them, they're not ready. But when they're ready, you're not going to be able to afford everyone. So it's really a must-win now. This year, next year are it. Is the Bledsoe contract up at the end of the year?
I don't have that in
I,
front
I
of me.
think they got one more year out of it, but still, they have a chance right now. And as a Celtics fan, I am a little concerned. We're obviously missing, I'd say, our 2 better players in Hayward, who went down day one, and now Kyrie Irving, who's going to be shut down the rest of the year with a knee injury. I think if they don't win this, that should be a very disappointment for the entire year. I think they have to at least get to the second round. because they're gonna look back at it, and Giannis is gonna be like, "Man, I had all this talent around me, and I couldn't get it done. I just we should have been better." And I don't
Uh,
know.
do do you just want to start going through these matchups one
Sure,
by
sure,
one?
sure. Let's where do you want to start? You want to start with Celtics Bucks then? We go with the hometowns.
No, let's start with we'll start with the one seed and work our way down. So start off with Raptors Wizards.
Raptors Wizards. Well, we've already kind of showed our opinions of the Wizards. I I wouldn't expect. I'm not expecting. They're either all right. This series is either going to go 7 or it's going to be a sweep. This team's either going to show up in Washington and show the potential that I just talked about, or they're going to just collapse and just want this year to end as soon as possible. And Toronto's very focused, laser focused. I do not want to go to Toronto and play. They have a very good home court crowd. Fun to have the games. Hopefully they don't get all the afternoon games again. I know the coach over there has showed
Hmm.
his disappointment in that. Uh, I'll
Don't they
say
like the afternoon games because it's a little warmer out and they're all outside? You're in Canada.
I think they just want the primetime slot on TV for once, and they should get it now as the one seed. I think they've earned it. I think they deserved it. I do think it'll still be a long series. I will pick the Raptors in 7, despite all that. I think they're going to show up.
All right, I'm going Raptors in 6. I think what's really going to be the difference is remember last year when the Celtics and Wizards played, it wasn't so much the starters, all the guys that are the main go-tos. It was their bench. They had nobody when Wall was out and if Beal was out. Like they tried to keep one in at a time. That was when Smart, Kelly Olynyk just like came after it. So I think with the Raptors having one of the best benches in the NBA, even if Wall and Beal play really well and maybe then they take the lead, as soon as that bench unit comes in and Siakam and CJ Miles, just that whole second unit, Van Vliet, that's gonna just take it away.
All right, let me ask you this: who's the best player in this series? And it may not be in
Like
the past, like now,
right
today. Today, I know you have some health things and a little bit of concerns with Wall, and he just came back. But right now, today, game 1 of this series, who's the best player?
I would say DeMar DeRozan. I would say healthy John Wall, but I think with him still coming back from the injury, I would go DeMar.
You're gonna go Demar. I still think John Wall's the best player in this series, but their depth is
I
very
think it's the injury, strictly because of the injury.
strictly because of the injury. I'm still gonna give it to John Wall. I think he can do a lot more. Demar is much more effective for what his team needs out of him, as well as they have defined roles. That's the hardest thing. Is I think John Wall is capable of being the best player and is the best player in the series. But if they don't use him properly or if he doesn't play well with the others, his passing ability, you can throw it out the window. Who cares if he can make assists if he doesn't pass the ball or if he's not on the same page with all of them. So I still think this series goes 7, and I do think this is going to be one of the harder matchups for Toronto. I know they're going to have the potential Cavaliers in the next round, but I think they'll match up better with them than the Wizards. The Wizards are a weird matchup for Toronto. So I will take Toronto in 7, though. I think they have too much depth. I think they have better coaching and have had whole lot less drama than Washington. Like I said, it's either going to go 7 or it's going to go 4. I'm hoping they pull it together and that this is just a really fun, entertaining series. Moving on to the next matchup, or anything else you want to add to that one?
No, I'm good.
Moving on to the next matchup, we have the Cavaliers hosting the Pacers, who managed to sneak in a little bit there. Or at least the Cavs dropped. The Sixers snuck in. I mean, I think this is a quick one. This was quick, right? I think Cleveland is focused. LeBron.
Which matchup are you doing?
I'm just going down by the brackets here. The bracket I got here, they got 1-8, and then 4-5 after.
Oh, okay. All right. So Cavs Pacers.
Cavs Pacers.
Okay.
I think this is a quick one. I like Indiana, but they're too young. They're very inexperienced, and they're not ready. They're not ready. And Cleveland, they may not be ready either, but they're more ready than Indiana. And LeBron is going to carry this team. I would be shocked if it's not a sweep. I will pick Cleveland in 4.
All right. I went Cavs in 6. But got a little interesting trivia for you that kind of goes against my pick. When would you guess the last time LeBron lost a first round game? Not a first round series, a first round game.
Um, Oh man, well they've always been such a top seed. I don't know. 2 years ago,
Just one game.
yeah, one game,
2012.
2012.
2012. He is on a crazy first round win streak. And here's another one for you. When's the last time LeBron lost a first round?
I don't I don't know, 2006.
He's never lost a first round series.
Oh, man, so you're right. He didn't make. I think the one year I'm thinking of, it was probably his rookie year. It was the only year they didn't make the playoffs. Is my guess. Has he made the playoffs every year?
Never. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I'm not sure about that first
I don't think
that
he
first
made it.
time.
I don't think they got in the first year. I think after that he's made it. Why is that not talked about? I mean, the finals
Yeah,
appearances are
that's what that,
amazing.
that
Why is that not talked
yeah,
about?
both both of those were impressive. Just wow, did not realize that. So I think this year's a little bit different, where you got this kind of newer team trying to figure things out. Uh, I agree. I don't know if the Pacers are ready. I don't know who they're going to have to guard LeBron, but I just think in one of those games, and I'm projecting two of those games, probably in Indiana, Oladipo, whoever, just absolutely goes off. The he just carves up that soft defense, and they're up 20 to start the fourth quarter, and it's too big a mountain for LeBron to claw back. But in any close game, LeBron's definitely just going to take over and just do LeBron things.
I think that they're gonna have you're gonna. I think you're gonna be surprised by Cleveland's defense this first round. Oladipo is not gonna have a good series in my prediction. I think they're gonna focus on
You
him.
think there's a switch?
I
You
think
think
they're
there's just a switch they turn?
I think there's going to be a switch. I think this team, especially these young guys, Clarkson, Larry Nance, these guys they just traded for Hood, they're hungry. They have been dying to play in the playoffs. They have spent their entire career just trying to get in, and now not only are they in, but they have a chance to go somewhere. I think these guys are going to really value finally getting in a lot more than anyone's giving them credit. They picked the right, they traded for the right scrappy guys. And these guys are not only talented and can score and have been in bad situations going or in the past. But going forward, this is it. They got a chance now, and if they recognize that, I think you're going to be surprised by how much this team suddenly meshes together. And LeBron is so LeBron's unreal. It's just crazy the stuff he's doing. He's still my MVP. He's not going to win it. James Harden's going to get it, but he's still the MVP. And it's a shame that I feel like I'm the only one screaming that. LeBron is the most valuable player in the NBA. Right, let's see.
Well, you can have your crazy opinions and
It's not
do what you
crazy.
want with
It's
them.
not crazy. It's still not crazy. You put him on any of these other rosters, and they're a million times better. Trade him with anybody. You put him on Indiana's. I feel like this is almost the roster he's playing with. If you just swapped him and Oladipo, there'd be the same result.
There's some sort of reason why his team is the fourth seed, not the one seed.
They're working on it. They're working on it. All right, it's gonna be the
Yeah.
switch. I'm ready for the
All
switch.
right.
All right, Cavaliers in 4. You got Cavaliers in 6.
Yep.
Moving on to what I think is the most intriguing matchup in the East Coast, the 76ers are the 3 seed and the Miami Heat at 6. You have a bunch of young talent in this and a very, very, very good Hall of Fame veteran in Dwayne Wade. We're going to see what he has left. It doesn't look like Embiid is going to be there for game 1. I do expect him to come back at some point in the series. Am I crazy
Did
to
you see
think
him with
that?
the mask?
I haven't seen the mask.
He was just I don't know, he kind of warmed up, or and he did all of his media. He was wearing a black mask that looks similar to the one that LeBron wore, but then they said he couldn't wear it anymore. So Embiid is saying that, hey, this is the best material to have this stuff made out of, and said he tried the clear mask, but says he's getting a glare off of it. So I don't know if those excuses are going to work and they're going to let him wear the black mask. I hope they do, but if the league sticks to the policy from before, then he won't be able to wear that one.
Rondo had the black mask, right?
Oh, that seems right. He's had trouble with remember I'm trying to remember when it was, but I seem to remember at some point he had like the migraines or something along those lines where he wanted to wear like sunglasses playing and they wouldn't let him. You remember that?
Yeah. That also sounds familiar, but it also sounds like Rondo is the type of guy to, you know, force the NBA to make a
Just push.
ruling on things, pushing a lot of
Yeah.
buttons here. So who knows? Perhaps Embiid isn't quite the character as Rondo, and they may view it differently. I know that's kind of an injustice, but that's kind of the true reality of of a young talent and a guy who's kind of pushing the NBA buttons pretty regularly here. So you may get a different ruling on that. You know what, this one I've gone back and forth. I can totally see Miami winning this. And then I could totally see the Sixers cruising to the conference finals. I think this Embiid injury and him not playing with them the past couple is gonna almost hurt them to a degree when they finally throw him back in. All this momentum is carrying them right now, though. I think you have to go Philly, though. I think Philly in 7, but in a seventh game, if Dwayne Wade is healthy, he's been there before and he can easily win a game. It's just, do you think he's got enough in the tank? I'm sticking with Philly with 7. What do you got?
I got Sixers and 6. I just think that Philly's best is better than Miami's best. Uh, I think that it'll be a series. Spoelstra has been there. Wade's been there. They do have talent. Dragic, Richardson. They got legitimate guys. Whiteside's a little goofy right now. I'm not sure what's going on with him exactly.
Yeah, but they match up
Uh,
well with those
but
all those guys.
Bam's coming on.
Yeah.
Bam's looking to take Whiteside's spot. He's coming on strong. I think it'll be a series, but especially if Embiid comes back for Game 2, which is what the projection is right now. I think that it's just Miami will just be toast.
I almost feel like they should hold off bringing Embiid back because Embiid is almost going to play to the strengths of Miami's defense. They're going to have to play Bam, and Whiteside are going to have to match up with Embiid. And those are probably those two guys are probably one of the few guys that can play defense on Embiid. Now, I'm not saying they can stop him, but they're definitely capable of.
Somebody like legitimate to throw at him, yeah.
But if you take Embiid out, now Philly goes small, and now you have Whiteside and Bam guarding somebody else, somebody faster, somebody who's not going to play in the post, somebody that might shoot or run or rebound or won't be the focal point of the offense. And now you're kind of wasting your best defender on a guy you're not even worried about. And you can't just switch Whiteside and Bam onto somebody else. It doesn't work. So I think I wouldn't even worry about rushing Embiid back. Obviously, the team is better with them, but I think roster-wise, it's gonna be really hard for Miami to have those guys in there if Embiid isn't also in there.
Especially if Fultz is playing well.
Hey, good for Markelle Fultz, man. It's just nice to see him on the floor.
Definitely didn't expect him to be a factor. What, a month ago?
Hey, yeah, I didn't think he was gonna. I didn't think he was gonna come back at all. And now he not only is he back, but he's got a chance to really do something here.
He's a guy. He's doing stuff.
So,
He had a
real quick,
triple-double the last game of the year.
real quick right now. I think this is the best draft class since the LeBron year. I think there's a lot of deep talent in there. It may not be the superstar talent, but there's gonna be a lot of guys from this draft that we're gonna be saying their names a lot longer than anyone expected. Is that fair to say? I think this is the best draft since LeBron's draft. What was that? 2004? When was LeBron's? 2005, 2004, 2003?
It was 2003.
2003.
2003, 2004. I think it's a little quick, but I think that it's headed in that direction based off what we're seeing right now.
Just
remember, Simmons would have been his last year's draft.
That's fine. That's fine. Even with the Dennis Smith Jr. I know he didn't make the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Markelle Fultz, Lauri
Markkanen. It definitely
Markkanen.
has the possibility, but
I'm sure I'm
it
forgetting
definitely
other
has the
guys.
possibility, but just want to be careful. We've kind of seen how that LeBron year has progressed, where there's still a lot of, hey, if these guys continue kind of, hey, they project here, but you still have to put the work in the off season to get to those levels and to have success. So I think it can be projected, it can be headed in that direction, but I don't think we can say like, yo, this is the best class since, this early on.
I think one thing you can say, though, this is probably one of the best rookie classes for their rookie years. Like, all these players had very, very strong rookie years. Now, where their careers go from here, I'm not sure. I think they're going to be really good players, and we're going to be saying their names forever for like 10, 20 more years or however long. But they're all playing minutes this year, and I think that's an impressive thing that you got to give credit to all these these rookies. They're rookies playing big minutes
To
on
that
big
point,
teams.
I saw an interesting stat that said last year, the rookies, there were 4 players that averaged 10 or more points a game. This year, there's 12.
That's big. Do you think this is the direction of the NBA? Like maybe this is just a different trend right now, where they're like, "Hey, we're playing the young guys. These young guys are coming in better, or they're getting coached better, or they're knowing how to work with them a little bit better." Because I think even if you go back to LeBron's rookie year, obviously he was a special case, but there wasn't an expectation of him being the guy day one. He was a rookie, even as talented as he was. There was an expectation of like, all right, you're the rookie role. You're not the starter role. You're not the main guy. At least not on day one. We know you're going to be, but it feels like all these guys were like, hey, no, you're going to get starters minutes. You're going to get this role. You're going to have a much larger role on the team than feel like in the past. Is that a new thing, or is that just a special case for this year?
I think that there's been some goofy situations that have happened. If Gordon Hayward doesn't go down in that first quarter, I don't think that Jason Tatum gets nearly as much run. So I think that he's not looked at as like, oh man, he's getting a lot of minutes, he's getting a lot of run. Uh, I think that the Sixer situation is unique, where it's just all these young guys kind of coming together. If Fultz is healthy the whole time, does that kind of take away from some of Simmons's minutes and kind of make him a little less? I mean, Donovan Mitchell, he just came out of nowhere, and they're like, well, we have to play this guy.
Actually,
So I'm
do
not
you
sure
want to?
exactly what that is, but like some of the other guys, like Dennis Smith Jr., I think that's more of a normal route of, hey, we're on a crappy team, we're playing for the future. All right, yeah, make sure to give him as much time as possible. That's more the traditional route.
All right. Well, since we're kind of on the topic of it, I was going to wait till we got to the Utah matchup, but I think Donovan Mitchell really should be the rookie of the year. I don't think it should be Simmons. And it's not that Simmons doesn't
Why?
deserve it, earned it. I love that he wore the sweatshirt, and that's all I want to say. An athlete playing for his or her first season is a rookie. And Simmons didn't play at all. I didn't play a single game, and I get that's how the rules have been in the past. But can you imagine the advantage of being able to train, hang out in an NBA locker room for an entire year and just observe everything? This is an unfamiliar territory for everybody. Nobody's 100% prepared for the NBA. Having 1 year to kind of take all your time and off season to train with the team and coaching staff and get in better shape and just be on the same page as everyone is such an advantage in my book that I feel like Donovan Mitchell really is the winner here. Even if he doesn't get the award, he should be the winner in everyone else's book.
I have thought a lot about this and have gone through what your argument is right there, and I agree with it, but that's not what the rule is. The rule says if you don't play any games your first year, when you start playing games, that is officially your rookie year. So like Fultz only played, a handful of games this year. This was his rookie year. So you can't change the rules just because you don't like them.
Do you even know who won last year?
It's
Who
like
won last
it's
year?
like oh well he's got an advantage. It's like oh well this guy is 3 inches taller, so he has an advantage. Like that's kind of the whole part of life is that it's not fair.
All right, Malcolm Brogdon won last year. Can we take his award and give it to one of these guys?
That's what I've been. That's the argument I like the best is retroactively take it away from Brogdon, give it to Simmons for last year, and give it to Mitchell for this year.
I'm sorry, Malcolm Brogdon. I'm pissing off Milwaukee fans
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
but
Virginia taking a lot of L's this year, but I'm one more. What's gonna
let's be honest though. It's a very unique situation, a situation in which I think you're going to look back at Donovan Mitchell and Simmons, and I think when they're becoming the player we think they're going to become, you're going to say, yeah, easily they both won Rookie of the Year, right? You're going to forget that this happened, and especially when you see their different draft classes, you're not going to remember Simmons' first year being out.
Yeah,
That'll be like 10 years down the road. That'll be good NBA trivia to know. I'm sure you'll stump
for
every
sure.
single person. But you gotta. I just all right. Which all right? Donovan Mitchell, Simmons. Right now, which team is playing with a more talented roster? Which guy? Is Simmons have a better team, or does Mitchell have the better team? It's close. It's very close because this Philly is really young and talented, and then Utah. I mean, Utah was a good team last year. They obviously had some roster changes losing Hayward, but I kind of almost viewed it as this is what they would have had even if Hayward stayed and had the same injury, and it would have been the same scenario.
That's kind of what I thought is all the talk of, oh, well, if he stayed, well, and just assuming, okay, the same thing happens. You're injured right at the beginning, so this would have been your team anyway.
You got an answer? Utah or Philly? Who's got the more talented roster?
Hmm. I'm going to say the Sixers because Embiid's the best player,
Embiid is the best player. So is that not an
and
argument
so
for
he
For Mitchell even more then?
no. If you just look at the playing, Simmons has just been unreal.
Man, I
If
feel
you're looking at
I
if
feel
Mitchell's played great, but it's nitpicking.
Mitchell's got a
You're
bunch of
trying to
fun
look past
highlights
it. You're
too.
just trying to just. I think it just seems like it's just like trying to be like just this like just difficult. Like well what about this? It's like you just look at it. You watch him play. It's like this guy's the best.
Just trying to stand up for my boy here, Donovan Mitchell. All right, but we'll talk more about him in the Utah matchup. Right now, we're going to move on to the Malcolm Brogdon Milwaukee Bucks versus the Boston Celtics that are matched up at the 2 and 7 seeds right now. This is going to be interesting. No Kyrie Irving, no Gordon Hayward. I have no idea if Marcus Smart is going to play. I feel like the rest of the team is very banged up as well.
No Daniel Tice, don't forget.
No Daniel Tice either. Uh, Milwaukee, Milwaukee's such a weird, really, really long roster of weird offensive talent. I feel like they have a very strong offense, but then they struggle to score and they don't have any shooters. But yet, I think all of those guys are still offensive threats in their own way. It just may not always, the pieces may not always link together as smoothly as they should. And then the same thing on defense. You would assume they all have a very strong defense of being very long and having guys that can switch and guard multiple positions, and yet I feel like they get put in mismatches regularly. What do you got? What do you got for this? I'm gonna let you make the first pick on this, and I'll follow up.
All right, I got season 7,
You
and my main note on this one, it's similar to when we talk about the NFL and talk about football. In Bill we trust, in Brad we trust, and I think that Brad's he's gonna figure out a way. I don't know what it's gonna be, but he's gonna throw some sort of wrinkle out there, and that the Bucks aren't gonna be ready for it. They have Giannis, who is far and away gonna be the best player on the court every game, but I think that he's still a year away from just being in that LeBron category of it doesn't matter, fourth quarter, as long as it's not like a crazy deficit, and even sometimes when it is, like I'm gonna take over and we will not lose this game.
Man, I love this Boston team, and it's a very good Boston team even without those players. I I don't know which team's gonna show up though. I don't know. I don't know if our heart is going to be enough to win us the game, if the coaching is going to be enough to win us the series. But at the same time, I've seen so much inconsistency with Milwaukee. Sometimes they're amazing, and other times it's like how come they're struggling to do so many simple things? How come they can't play defense, or how come they can't score? Uh, and then the coaching probably has something to do with that, and that is definitely an advantage for Boston. I'll also go. I'll take Boston in 7. I don't feel very good about it though. I do not feel like that out of all the matchups here, that one I'm very very shaky on of just seeing a more talented roster come out there and just be the more talented roster. And that's just what's left. And you know what?
Yeah,
I won't even say it's a disappointment for Boston. I would say if Boston loses, it's not even a disappointment. I think if Milwaukee loses, it's still a massive disappointment for what they should have done this year. They shouldn't have put themselves in the situation of being the 7 seed. So they have a chance to redeem themselves of getting a lucky injured Boston to kind of redeem the season as a whole. But I don't think I don't see it happening. I hope it doesn't happen. It could happen though.
and I don't think it would be. We're missing missing one of our best players for the whole year. We're missing Kyrie for the playoffs. Smart, as much as it can be frustrating to watch him, he's a legitimate NBA player that is, the first guy off the bench a lot of the times. And Tice was definitely helpful. What I am looking for, revenge Greg Monroe series. How about that?
I love it. I love
Can we
it.
all get on that bandwagon?
I'm
Can we
on the.
start that? Can we start like loading up like supplies for that?
You
Get
know,
some beef jerky.
we're all aware of who Scary Terry is, and I hope he's healthy. I think he's had some ankle
Ooh,
problems right now. But I think the
he's
world
healthy.
the world is about to know. Everyone else is about to realize who Scary Terry
Ooh,
is.
is everyone gonna find out about Scary Terry?
I think Terry Rozier is going to become a very big household name this series, and
Did,
it's just because of dude, he's hungry. He's a hungry guy. He likes defense. He's a killer too, though. He's clutch. I think there's going to be close games, and he's going to have to be the guy. Uh, I'm looking for a big series out of Scary Terry. For those of you who don't know who that is, that's Terry Rozier of the Boston Celtics. He's a guard.
did you see that a few weeks ago he like you said had a little ankle problem. He sat out. That was the first game he sat out in like his entire career. Like he'd never set a game out in high school, never in college, and never in the NBA up to that point.
He's the guy. He's gonna get it. If we're gonna win this series, he's gonna have to be the guy to get it done. Tatum's gonna do his
I
thing.
think he's
Jalen's
ready.
gonna
I've
do
been
his
hearing what he's
thing.
been saying. He's been saying all the right things.
I have big expectations for him. You know what? Every year this guy has gotten better, and I feel like he practices with the best players on the team every year. So we had this awesome defender, Avery Bradley, who is still one of the top premier defenders in the league. And I could just see the way Rozier was defending people. He was getting into people's grill and getting under people's skin as well, just like Avery was. He took everything Avery was doing and said, you know what, I'm going to practice, I'm going to learn, I'm going to do all that. And now this year, I've seen his offense. He's taken little bits and pieces of Kyrie Irving's game and kind of implemented it in his own style. And I can see that. I just want to recruit LeBron so Scary Terry can train under him and just take all of those moves as well. Because the guy's coachable. If anything, I think he's one of the most coachable players I've ever seen. For those two reasons, I've seen him come in as a rookie of just being kind of a hustle guy, had an okay jump shot, not a great dribbler, and just take bits and pieces of all these other players he's practicing with, and putting them all together and using them in the right time at the right place. Big, big, big expectation. If we want to get this series done in 7 or even less, it's going to come down to him stepping up, which he's done all year. So big, big, big things for him.
Speaking of our great friend Avery Bradley, another win for Danny Ainge with that trade, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think it looks pretty good right now.
We
Avery
get Morris for another year on a cheap contract, and Avery Bradley becomes a free agent, and he was hurt pretty much all year, and Detroit certainly suffered.
Marcus is going to win us a game in these playoffs. I can feel it. He's already won them before. I would say some of his shot selection is a little bit unorthodox, but as long as he shoots the ball confidently, which as bad as the shots are, he's shooting them confidently, I'm all right with it. As long as he thinks that ball's going in, he better shoot it. Because we're going to need him to put the ball in the hoop a couple times.
Oof, yeah, because we don't have a bunch of offensive firepower, and as much as I don't like it, seems like he gets the ball, and a lot of times it's a black hole. With this team, sometimes you just need a guy like that because no one else is putting the ball in the hoop.
At least he wants to do it. I feel like some of the guys will end up with it and be like, all right, I got to shoot this, and they don't want to do it. They don't want it. They know. At least he wants it. Hopefully that green light isn't too green though, or if we just contain it. Brad, good luck. I can only imagine what that locker room's like right now, where he's like, "Hey, I'm the offensive powerhouse now. I got so many extra shots do I
Guys,
get
I
now?"
got it. I got it. Don't worry about it.
Speaking of having the green light, let's move over to the West Coast. We have the top seed, the Houston Rockets, facing the defensive, weird young team in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Uh too much offensive power out right here, right? This is going to be a quick series as well. I will pick Houston in 5. I think James Harden just goes bananas all playoffs. I think Chris Paul is going to be super hungry to finally be back in the playoffs on a team that he can essentially do whatever he wants. And that's not to discredit Doc Rivers of the past in saying he was limiting Chris Paul, but I do feel like Chris Paul put a lot of other people's needs ahead of his, and now he's able to do what he wants the whole time, and it's just working. Houston's in a flow and a rhythm with an offensive juggernaut of 3-point shooting and running, and it'll be interesting to see how the defensive-minded Minnesota Timberwolves match up against this. But what do you got?
I got 2 points here. One is, and these are both for Houston and against the Timberwolves. With Tibbs all year, he plays his guys basically playoff minutes. So where most teams, when you go from regular season to playoffs, there's like a jump up, and they kind of have the same disadvantage that the Celtics have, where the Celtics play hard all year. So when they get the playoffs, like that scrappiness is kind of, it doesn't work as much because they've been doing it all year where other teams haven't. So with the minutes, other teams like Houston, they probably Chris Paul or Harden are going to be on the floor all the time, not like most time, like all the time. And I don't think they're going to be able to make that jump, as well as they've played each other 4 times this year, and Houston won by an average of 16 points.
Would you say this was a disappointing year for Minnesota, making the trade for Jimmy Butler,
Yes.
signing Jeff Teague, bringing in Thibodeau a year ago, and you bring in Derrick Rose mid-year, like all the Taj Gibson, all these players he's played with before that had success in Chicago, and then piecing them together with young talent like Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with this team. I don't. They don't gel together. It's not that it's a bad roster, and it could entirely be
I
some coaching things, but it just doesn't feel like the skill set of all of them makes sense anymore. I don't see it.
uh I I agree. Like it doesn't gel right. It's weird because I think it's like Wiggins thinks he's the guy, but clearly like Jimmy's the guy. And then I don't know if, like I said, if it's coaching or how exactly it works. But when Jimmy was out, like Cat's got to be the guy. But Cat just seems fine with saying, "Hey, Wiggins wants to take 20 shots. Sure, go for it. I'll take 8." Like, no, you gotta get it to your best player.
Not only that, I do find it interesting as defensive minded as Thibodeau is and as much minutes as he played. How come he can't get Karl Anthony Towns to play defense? Like that has to be
Which
a
is
red
so weird because
that has to
Carl
be a
Anthony
red
Towns
flag, right?
played incredible defense at Kentucky. That was their thing. And so normally it's the guy that was really good or was not good. It continues to it doesn't go that way. It's not like you're good in college and then you are less of a defender in the NBA. Or I can't really think of many scenarios when that happens.
Something's not right there, and unfortunately, I think Thibodeau has to go. I think they're going to be done with him at the end of this year. I don't know who you bring in there to fix, or if you're going to hold on to Thibodeau, you got to make at least one of these guys has got to go. And if that ends up being Jimmy Butler or Wiggins or Teague or somebody here is not. There's too
Not
much
working.
overlap. Something's not working here.
And there's too much talent for it not to work.
And you know what else? It's too little of a window either. Jimmy Butler is in his prime right now, and I would say is one of the premier players in the NBA. Sure, he had some injuries, but they're wasting his talent by having a year like this. And if I'm him, I'd be really disappointed. He would have had a worse year in Chicago with obviously not making the playoffs. But I think Jimmy was finally like, I see so many players that stay in their original draft homes for so long, and then they regret not moving to have a chance to make it to a championship contending team. He made the move. He found a team that he could play on, and this is what they gave him. Huge disappointment of a mess of a roster. That's their pain and agony is going to end quickly. Houston in 5. I think Jimmy gets him one game on the home floor, but that's not going to
Yep,
be
I agree.
that's not
Yep.
going to be anything. Those if anything, it'll be 4, and
Rockies
they'll
in
be
5.
blowouts. Moving
I
on
think
to
their fans are going to be super hyped up because they haven't been in the playoffs for a long time. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be many games. If you're a Wolves fan, I'd say get your tickets right away.
yeah, I would not hold out. I would not wait for Game 6. Let's see. Next matchup we have the number 4 OKC versus the Utah Jazz. I know we touched on a lot of Donovan Mitchell thing. This Utah team is very talented Really, really talented. I like this roster a lot. I think I said last year I would take the Utah roster over the Boston Celtic roster. And it's close. It's still pretty close too. They just have a lot of good bodies, a lot of smart players. They play well as a team. I feel like they're constantly overlooked. They have the chip on their shoulder every game, every year. Versus, I think the OKC is the complete opposite of that. They're under a microscope. They have the big names. They have Mr. Triple Double. They got free agents and made trades and all the flashing kind of glamour. I think this is going to be a much closer matchup than anyone is anticipating. For those who are unfamiliar with Utah, they're really good. Is basically what I'm saying here. What do you think is going to happen?
This is the most interesting first round matchup. When I was going through uh all my research and looking at previews and listening to what people were saying, pretty much all the other series, I would say 80 to 90% everyone's picking the same. This is the one that's like a true toss up. This is the one that some people are thinking the Jazz, some people are thinking the Thunder. I'm going Thunder in 7. I just think that Paul George, Russell Westbrook, they've been there before. They're both capable of getting the ball and saying, "Everybody get out of my way. I'm getting a bucket right now." I think that more Paul George, but I think they're both ready to be on the other end and say, "There is no way these guys are scoring on us right now." And being a rookie, it's tricky. People can tell you all the things and all the stories, but making that jump from the regular season to the playoffs is difficult. And I think it'll be a great learning experience for Donovan Mitchell, but I don't think he's going to make it out of the first round.
I'm taking Utah in 7. I'm doing it. I just think this. I see so much dysfunction in OKC and so many things that can go wrong, and there's just as many things that can go wrong in Utah, but I don't think they're as likely. I also think Utah made one of the best offseason moves in getting Ricky Rubio. Very underrated, very not talked about. I'm highlighting it as one of the best moves they've done. I mean, say what you want about Ricky Rubio in
Um,
Minnesota. Ricky Rubio in Utah has been the farthest thing from a bust. A really, really
any
solid player.
uh, any concern that Rubio is also a playoff rookie?
No, no, none. He
Okay,
played in a lot of big games when he was before the NBA. A lot of international games. He's been there before.
yeah, he,
And
he played in the Olympics when he was 17.
if it's a much closer matchup, as you said, there's a lot of people going both sides. But I think for the general public, this is going to be a David Goliath kind of look, where Goliath is the Thunder and Utah is just this unknown small city, small name roster.
West Coast, you don't get a lot of chance to see him if you're on the East Coast.
But
I'm guilty of that.
they're really well coached. They're a very deep roster, and I think they have a lot less flaws in their system. OKC can be a really good defensive team, and they can be a really bad 3-point shooting team. They're going to have to hit some shots if they want to make it through this. I think Utah hits more shots than them, and they will edge out a Game 7 victory in OKC.
Oof, that will be.
It's gonna. I think it's gonna happen. Either that or Russell Westbrook is either gonna go just 50 points, 30 rebounds, 100 assists, some crazy numbers. But I don't think it's going to get him the wins. I think he's going to have huge numbers, though. You're going to see playoff record-setting numbers from him.
While we're there, could we just talk briefly? He averaged a triple double again this year,
Does anybody care?
and is not even on the radar for MVP.
Because that's, you know what? We screwed up. We screwed up, man. He shouldn't have won it last year. We created a monster. We added these mythical rules of why he should win, and we just didn't think we didn't think this thing was possible. And it turns out if you can almost schedule a
Um,
triple double at
did
this point.
have you heard?
It's staged.
I think it's still impressive. Even all the he's just stat chasing, whatever the argument. To play every game and to be putting up those sorts of numbers, I still find it to be impressive. But did you hear Pablo Torre's take on this?
I did not.
He was saying basically the only reason that we really like triple doubles is because it's got a cool name, and that like just the way it works. Where other cultures, I think it was like I can't remember if it said the Chinese culture or the Japanese culture, or what specific. I think it was a Eastern um, country. Like their number 10 is still a single digit. So like if this was the case, like if basketball were invented out there, this would not be a thing. And it's just a it's just an interesting idea of what's better, getting 10, 10, and 10, or getting 20, 12, and 8. How do you break it down, and what's cooler?
Like he's incredible. He's an amazing talent. Clearly, I can't fight that. But I think all the stuff he does, it doesn't really lead to victories, or it definitely doesn't lead to winning playoff series. Definitely doesn't do that. Does not lead to
And
championships.
that's the issue.
Versus, I think the team basketball you're going to see in Utah, because the thing is, people are going to watch this series, and just like I said, people are going to start to know who Scary Terry is. You're going to get to know some of these Utah guys that you're unfamiliar with, and you're just going to see a really well-rounded team play playoff basketball better than a lot of other people. Is my expectation. And you're going to see Russell Westbrook do these heroic Superman crazy playoff numbers. And then you're going to be like, why is he trying so hard to do all this? He could just get everyone else involved, or, play basketball with a different strategy. He's just such single-minded. He's tunnel vision. The hoop is that way. I'm going to run as fast as I can and jump as high as I can and throw this ball as hard as I can down that hoop that way. Not looking at anything else, not looking at anyone else. Going that way.
I
That's
get
it.
what you're saying, man. But he is still so much fun to watch. Just just from purely just like an athletic, just how does this guy do this?
The other thing was that mindset is, I think he's the closest thing to a Jordan mindset of all these guys. Killer instinct. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna be the
It's
guy.
coming
I
for
don't
you.
care who gets in my way. I gotta give him credit for that. But I think he just, I hate to just keep piling on Scott Brooks and now Billy Donovan. I think he needs the right coach to control that and say, this is when you get to do that. This is when you got to do this. I think his timing and judgment is so poor. It's so poor. It just feels like he's not unaware of situations so regularly. And that's my big flaw for that. And that's a flaw of this whole team. Is Melo, because Melo's judgment is not very good either. Is Melo going to know when to do this? And is Paul George going to know when to take the ball from Westbrook? Because he's going to have to do that at some point.
Yeah, and some of that does have to be on the coach to say, hey, this is what we're doing. I get this is unusual, but hey, this is what has to happen right now for the best of the team.
Well, I'm picking Utah in 7. You got OKC in 7. Moving on to the next
Yep.
matchup. Really, really fun matchup here. Portland Trailblazers, who I love their roster too. Really, really fun roster. And then Anthony Davis and the New Orleans Pelicans at 6. This is gonna be fun, right? This is gonna be fun. I'm thinking Portland. I don't know. It should go 7, but I'm thinking Portland is 6.
I'm going Blazers in 7. And I have that written down, right? And write my notes. Fun matchup. I mean, you have these fringe MVPs in Lillard and Davis. Either one of these guys could go off for like huge numbers, 40-point games. Like even maybe in the same game or back-to-back games, you have to be watching these games because you have no idea what these guys are going to do.
Really, really, going to be just a fun matchup. A lot of fun players, a lot of offensive talent, a lot of big numbers. I know I just said a whole bunch of reasons why the numbers don't matter for Westbrook and all that. I think you could look at Davis and you can look at Lillard and McCollum. These guys have that judgment I'm talking about. They identify a situation much, much better, and they will use those skill sets and put up those big numbers while still being within the system. I don't think they're just not as selfish. Is that fair? Is that wrong? They're just not as selfish.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
how is like, 'cause how else are they different? We all know the eye test will tell us Lillard and Davis are different than Westbrook. But outside looking in, they all just put up big numbers. None of them had any success in the playoffs. So what is the difference?
Well, I don't think Davis has as much help. if he had Boogie Cousins on his team and he's just taking 25, 30 shots, it's like, wait, oh, what are you doing here? But it's like the next best guy is Drew Holiday, who's been playing awesome this year, but still, it's just Drew Holiday.
It would be really fun if Boogie did come back for the playoffs. I would just this team would be a problem. This team would be a problem. Portland would have worked their ass off the entire year to get this 3 seed, and then if Cousins somehow came back for this series, it would be a problem. But I'm expecting a really really fun matchup for that. If you are on
Well,
the
it
fringe,
depends. Is engaged Boogie Cousins gonna play, or is I don't really play defense. I'm kind of bored. Boogie Cousins gonna play.
look, as good as Anthony Davis is, I still think Boogie Cousins is a better player, and that sounds crazy to say now. The way that he has played without Boogie and got him into the playoffs and made all these big runs and numbers, I still think Boogie is a better player. But that's a personal opinion, and that really won't matter until next year if Cousins even comes back and plays on this roster ever again.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately, maybe even not next year.
we'll see. We'll see. What did happen later in the year. He may miss the entire year next year. And we'll see. We may not even ever see the same Boogie again. It's a big man have a hard time recovering from injuries, and he's not a young guy anymore, really either. He's kind of at that. He's not old, but he's not going to bounce right back up from this. Moving on.
Definitely agree.
Moving on to the last matchup. First of all, if you're less familiar with Portland and New Orleans, just watch. I'm telling you, watch this matchup. You're not going to be disappointed. It's
sure.
going to be fun. And they might not get all the primetime slots of the regular NBA season, but they should get it for the playoffs. And if you have a chance to see these games, watch this game. It's going to be high scoring, a lot of fun stuff, really, really good crowds. You're going to see it's going to be a fun game, fun matchup. Lastly, we'll close out an interesting matchup here of the Golden State Warriors at 2 and the San Antonio Spurs at 7. Now, if you asked me last year whether the Spurs Warriors series was going to go 6 or 7, I would have said, yeah, in the conference finals, right? Right? You would have said in round 1. This seems so. It's kind of rewarding in a way that we get to see this matchup and all the other matchups, and then we're going to see a different matchup in the finals. Obviously, San Antonio has had a weird year of injuries and dysfunction of, is Kawhi coming back? Is he not coming back? It doesn't look like Curry is going to play for the Warriors, but that really hasn't slowed them down at all. They're still a really talented team. But then you got Popovich here. There's so many things going on. I'm not ready to really evaluate this matchup. This shouldn't be a round 1 matchup. This should have been a second round conference finals matchup. And now I have to act like the Spurs are a 7 seed when you can never treat the Spurs as a 7 seed. These guys play with injuries so regularly, and sometimes they even schedule these. They bench players and they win those games. So I think you still got to go Warriors in 6, but I'm giving the Spurs those games. I mean, I'm saying it goes 6 still. This is not going to be a wash.
Warriors in 5.
You're not going to get
Kerr isn't afraid to pop, and part of that is he's still got 3 All-Stars playing. Like, you still have Clay, Draymond, and Durant. Now it's the playoffs. I know they didn't have as successful as a year as they would have possibly liked. But I think a lot of that is just, all right, well, we could win all these games and nobody cares unless we make it to the finals and win the championship. So why are we taking this seriously if no one else is? So there's a lot of lackadaisical effort, and I think that now the playoffs are here, it's going to be different. And I think there's the Spurs. They don't have they don't have their main guy. Their main guy hasn't played all year, and it's going to be all on Aldridge's shoulders. And it's too much.
That didn't really work out last year.
Yeah, it's too much.
But I think
they're going to be ready to go.
You're disrespecting Pop. Pop can get you 2 games.
I gave him a game. I gave him the gentleman.
I'm
giving him the gentleman sweep.
I'm giving him 2. I'm giving him 2 because the one game is kind of like the Victor Oladipo game you gave. It's like, all right, yeah, this team is obviously not as good, but they got this one guy who can win you a game. I think the Spurs get that game and another game from the coaching alone, or maybe a playoff foul trouble on Golden State, or some sort of weird situation that Pop's strategy just comes up above and beyond someone else's. So I'm giving him two. I'm giving him two. But it is disappointing. I mean,
It's
you didn't
just too
really
much.
comment on. This is kind of strange to see this in the first round, right? This is not what anyone was prepared for or expected.
Well, no one was expecting Kawhi Leonard to only play what he played single digit games.
When does he play? Does he play next year? And does he play for
I,
San
I
Antonio?
wrote that down on my little note sheet for you saying where where's Kawhi a year from now?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like San Antonio, but we know so little. And the little we know is even more confusing. Like the little we know doesn't help us in any way. Obviously there was a dispute of whether he's healthy or not. If he doesn't feel healthy, who cares if he's approved to play or cleared to play? Or if he got a second opinion that said you're not cleared to play. There's some sort of conflict in there, but I think it's almost like you need like you got to go to one more source. Like you have your guy, they have their guy. You need a definitive answer here. Otherwise, you're never gonna get anywhere, which is where we're at right now. I'm just shocked that both teams were that sided, and it didn't seem like either side was willing to compromise in any way. But I will say if you personally don't feel prepared to play and you think you're only gonna get injured again, or if you really don't think you can help the team, don't play. I think it's an easy decision. I think the problem is he doesn't feel 100%, but he probably can still help the team, and he doesn't want to do that. Is that fair to him, or is that fair to the team? That seems unfair to the team with some of these older guys. Ginobili, Tony Parker, they're not playing quite the same minutes, but with even a 50% Kawhi, they're still a pretty good team. They still got Popovich. They got a big roster, and they would have Kawhi even as limited as he was, or will be, or could be. I don't even know. Maybe he's not.
And then you hear reports that he's in New York City doing something, whether he's hanging out or getting an opinion. But whenever you hear those stories, you got to think, all right, who's the source on this? It's always anonymous, but who's the most likely source? Who has the most to gain from this? And it's just like I'm not really sure. Like, why would the Spurs really want to say this about their player who's still under contract? And you probably want him back, but at worst case, you want to trade him, so you still don't want to seem like he's a bad guy or he's not committed. Is Are we in any sort of situation that Kawhi is he's just done with basketball?
I don't see that situation. I don't think that's a
He's a
possibility.
finals MVP. He's won a championship, and his body's not right, and he just says, he's kind of a quirky guy, and just says, you know what, I'm done. I'm out. I'm gonna go do something else.
It really, that would probably make the most sense of anything. Like I would say the odds of that happening are more likely than him playing on the Spurs or playing on another team next year. Just because we know so little about it, and if it feels like this injury should have been healed by now, and if it hasn't healed or it doesn't look like it's going to heal again, I wouldn't blame him for hanging up the shoes. It just seems so fast. It just seems so fast because he was supposed to be the guy that was going to be the kryptonite to this Golden State Warriors team. It was like, all right, you guys have all your guys. That's cool. But we got this guy. This guy can do everything. I mean, everything. Very, very little weaknesses, and is ready in his prime right now.
And remember, going into this year, right before the season starts, when people are doing fantasy basketball drafts and stuff, this wasn't like the Isaiah Thomas where it's all right, yeah, we're projecting he's going to be back in January, and then there was some, missteps or some setbacks, and then it kind of got pushed, got pushed, got pushed. When the season started, there was nothing definitive. It was just like, he's a little sore, but there was no indication. And basketball usually is pretty good about even the teams that don't give away a lot of information. Usually you have some sort of idea, but it has just been, nope, nope, yeah, maybe he's okay. I don't know. We don't really know. And then just it goes along, and before you know it, it's the whole year.
I think I'm San Antonio. If I still feel like this is all going to be an off-season decision, so coming to the off-season, we're going to get even more time. I think if I'm San Antonio and I still feel the way I feel right now, where this guy's cleared to play, he should be playing, and if he doesn't feel ready to play, I think you have to move him. It won't do you any good to hold on to him, and there'll be teams begging to have him and offering even injured or unknown health concerns of the future. There's going to be teams offering him valuable packages, of which San Antonio, you don't even need to give them players. They just want picks. You can give them old picks, second-round picks, future picks. We know what they're going to do with those. That's how they're going to find the next Kawhi Leonard. You don't need to give them your Kawhi Leonard today. You got to give them a pick so they can draft a Kawhi Leonard.
But are they gonna? How is a team gonna do that? Because they're gonna obviously go in with their medical staff, and if it comes out as, yeah, Kawhi is good to go, isn't that more weird than, hey, yeah, I'm still not feeling good, so if you trade for me, I might not play, and then the Spurs at that point are like, well, we might as well just hold on to him, and then if he comes back, at least he's coming back for us, and we're not giving him away for peanuts.
I have no idea. Maybe this is kind of like that. Maybe he takes a year off. Maybe that makes the most sense. Was a year off, but maybe he just needs a break from everything. I don't know. We know so little, so it's hard to assume what's going to happen. It's hard to make a prediction based off all the information we have because none of it's definitive. We don't really know the truth. It all just sounds like media drama, which is the worst. The absolute worst source to make a decision like this off of. And a prediction, I can't say. Like I said, I see as the most likelihood is him not playing anywhere next year before I see him playing in San Antonio or move somewhere else. So I'll say that's the most likely thing. The next most likely thing is I think he stays in San Antonio, and the third would be I see him go somewhere else. Now, out of somewhere else, man, I would.
But he can't go somewhere else. They have to trade him. He's under contract.
Yeah. Now, so I'm saying teams that could potentially make a move to trade for him. That's going to depend on where Paul George goes next year. I think teams that strike out for that may be in candidacy for that. I think teams like Denver have a lot of young talent. They could make a trade for Kawhi Leonard, and even if he doesn't play, maybe they cleared out some cap space to take a chance out of guys they're not going to be able to afford anyways. I think that's an interesting team. And some of those guys I could see meshing well with the kind of San Antonio roster, or not roster, the sort of atmosphere that they have there. The mindset of San Antonio. Other teams, I think Milwaukee's an interesting team too. They got a pretty deep roster of young talented guys. Maybe even Minnesota. Maybe this Wiggins guy. Maybe that's not a bad idea. I don't know how he works in Pop's system though. But these are just some of the teams I could say potentially making moves. And I have no idea what the cap space is for any of these teams. I'm just throwing out some teams that I know they have some roster excess. They have a deep roster of guys that they can move, and they would be willing to take the risk of potentially having Kawhi. What about you? You got any predictions? What do you think is going to happen?
I think he might be done with basketball.
You think he's done?
That was weird to say, but it's a weird situation, and he's in a different position than a lot of other players. Not many players win both a championship and are the finals MVP this early on. And so he doesn't have that, I gotta get to the mountaintop. It's like, he's already been there. He's already won. So I think his mindset just might be different from other people.
Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. But those are our playoff predictions. Again, you're listening to a Little Column A, Little Column B, hosted by Will Leminos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. Make sure you check out our website, lcalcb.wordpress.com. Check out Zach's Twitter, which is
WickedZman24.
Whole lot of stuff. Glad to be back for the podcast. We should be back on our regular schedule. We had some people out of town. The interns, they weren't able to pull it together. They really tried. They did. But we're back in town, and hopefully we can get some more podcasts going on. We got a lot of playoff basketball kicking off today. Great matchups. I haven't been this excited for a first-round playoffs. I got kind of that March Madness itch. I don't know if you got it, but I got it. You feeling that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've definitely cleared my schedule for basketball.
Well, the only thing that's going to be a little tricky is I got the early games out here. These afternoon games,
yeah.
they're starting right now. I think tomorrow the Boston game starts off at like 10 or 11.
Yeah, 10 for you.
10 for me. That's a bright and early start there. But thank you, as always, for everyone for listening. Zach, if you got anything to add, now is the time.
Ooh, really pulling for the Celtics. Hopefully they can make it to the second round just on pure grit and willpower.
Well, enjoy the playoffs. I'm excited for everything. And as always, check out the site and make sure you share the podcast.